The galaxy had a simple rule: power decides truth. And for thousands of years, humanity did not exist in that truth. Beyond the spiral arm where Earth quietly orbited its yellow star, empires older than human history shaped reality itself. They rewrote physics with arrogance, erased civilizations with boredom, and called it order. When they looked at the universe, they did not see equals. They saw ownership. That was why Earth's name appeared on their screens with nothing but mild curiosity. The ruling power of known space was called the Dominion of Crowns, a coalition of 4 ancient civilizations bound together by fear and convenience. They were not friends. They were predators that had learned not to fight each other. The Aurelian Synod were beings of radiant plasma contained in towering gold frames. They lived for tens of thousands of years and believed time itself obeyed them. The Gravith clans were massive, stone-skinned warlords who had turned warfare into ritual and conquest into religion. The NYX Assembly were cold thinkers, thin and shadow-like, who replaced most of their bodies with machines and trusted only numbers. And finally, the Virexi Choir, a hive species that communicated through harmonic pulses and consumed entire biospheres to sustain their unity. Together, they ruled nearly half the galaxy. They had seen thousands of species rise. They had seen all of them fall. So when deep-range observers detected strange radio noise from an unimportant star system, no alarms were raised. The signals were crude, broken, emotional, full of music, arguments, and stories. Primitive. The Dominion analysts labeled the source species class fledgling and moved on. But then the signals grew stronger. Satellites were launched. Nuclear reactions spiked. Artificial intelligence frameworks appeared almost overnight. And most concerning of all, the species did something no others at that stage ever had. They kept adapting. Within decades, humanity leaped technological gaps that should have taken centuries. Failures became lessons. Conflicts became accelerators. Where other species unified early and stagnated, humans fought, argued, failed, and evolved faster because of it. That caught the attention of the NYX Assembly. A deeper scan followed. Earth was catalogued and claimed. The Dominion did not announce itself at first. It never did. Its fleets simply appeared, like gods arriving late to judge a finished world. On a quiet morning across Earth, skies changed. Above every continent, colossal shapes emerged from nothing. Ships larger than cities blocked out the sun. Their hulls bent light. Their presence bent fear. Every screen on the planet activated at once. A single figure appeared, tall, angular, encased in dark crystalline armor. Its voice did not echo. It pressed directly into the mind. Inhabitants of Earth. You stand at the edge of relevance. Your world has been evaluated. Your species has been measured. Human leaders froze. Militaries scrambled. Billions watched in silence. You are not unique. You are not exceptional. You are simply late. The being paused, as if allowing despair to settle. Your system now belongs to the Dominion of Crowns. You will surrender governance, industry, and military authority. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance ensures erasure. A symbol burned onto the screen, for crowns entwined. You have 12 hours. The transmission ended. Panic erupted. Governments argued. Old rivals shared emergency channels for the first time. Faith clashed with reason. Markets collapsed. Cities stood still as people looked to the sky and understood, all at once, how small Earth truly was. Missiles were useless. Satellites vanished when they approached the alien fleet. Every weapon humanity had ever built felt suddenly childish. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight anyway. But deep beneath the surface of Earth, far from cameras and chaos, something else was happening. In a facility that officially did not exist, beneath layers of rock and secrecy, a room of exhausted humans stood in silence. Scientists, engineers, military officers, civilians pulled from obscurity because they thought differently. At the center of the room stood Director Alina Moore, her hair tied back, eyes sharp despite the weight of the moment. They finally came, someone whispered. Alina nodded. Later than expected. A young engineer laughed nervously. We can't fight that. Look at them. Alina turned to him. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. She gestured, and the room's main display activated. Blueprints filled the air. A ship. Not a fleet. A single vessel, dense, angular, unfinished. Project Aegis, Alina said quietly. Humanity's insurance policy. A general stared at the display. That thing isn't ready. No, Alina agreed. It's desperate. Silence followed. 4 decades, humanity had quietly prepared, not because it believed aliens were coming, but because history had taught one lesson over and over again. If someone stronger exists, they will come eventually. Aegis was never meant to conquer. It was meant to prove a point. While the world burned with fear, thousands of unknown workers moved with purpose. Systems were fused together that had never been tested at scale. Experimental physics was pushed beyond safe limits. The ship drank energy from reactors that should not coexist. It should not have worked. But humanity had built entire civilizations on things that should not have worked. Above Earth, the Dominion fleet waited. The Gravith War commanders mocked the planet below. They argue, one rumbled. They always do. The Aurelian Synod glowed with boredom. When the deadline ends, we cleanse. The NYX assembly observed quietly, running probabilities. And then, something changed. Energy spiked across Earth's surface. Not weapons. Launch systems. A massive structure tore through cloud and atmosphere, rising from the planet like a blade pulled from stone. It was not elegant. It was not beautiful. It was focused. Alarms screamed through the Dominion fleet. What is that? A Gravith commander demanded. Sensors struggled. Physics bent. The ship did not accelerate like known vessels. Space itself seemed to move aside for it. The NYX calculations froze. That is impossible, the assembly whispered. The human warship cleared the atmosphere and faced the fleet alone. Its hull bore no symbols of submission. Only a name etched into dark metal. Aegis. From deep within Earth, Director Alina Moore watched the feed and spoke softly, not to the aliens, but to her species. We tried peace, she said. Now we try humanity. The Aegis powered its weapons. And the galaxy, for the first time in its long, arrogant history, hesitated. The Dominion of Crowns had crushed rebellions that spanned star systems. They had erased worlds so completely that even dust forgot the names that once lived there. So when the single human ship hovered in front of their armada, they did not feel fear. They felt insult. On the command bridge of the Dominion flagship, a Gravith warlord stood like a mountain in armor. His skin looked like cracked stone, his eyes like molten iron. One ship, he growled. They send one ship. Aurelian commanders shimmered behind him, energy caged in gold frames. The NYX assembly interface floated cold and silent in the air, its thin shadow figures watching the numbers shift. Across their displays, the same warning flashed again and again. Unknown energy signature. Unknown shield structure. Unknown drive behavior. The Gravith warlord slammed a fist onto the console. The floor vibrated. Open a channel. Every screen on Earth lit up again. This time, the alien face was closer. Its voice was harsher. Less patient. Human vessel, it said. You violate Dominion protocol by launching military craft under claim order. The Aegis did not respond at first. Then its own transmission went out. No mind pressure, no psychic weight. Just a human voice, raw and steady, carried through radio like an old habit. A man appeared on the Dominion's main display. He wore a simple flight suit, stained with grease and smoke. One eye was bandaged. His jaw was swollen, like he'd taken a hit and refused to lie down. His name was Captain Elias Rook. We heard your offer, Rook said. We rejected it. The Gravith warlord leaned forward. You stand before the Dominion. You do not reject. You comply. Rook blinked slowly. Yeah. That's the thing. Humans don't do well with comply. Aurelian light flickered, annoyed. We gave you mercy. Rook smiled faintly. It wasn't friendly. You gave us a timer. He paused, eyes narrowing. And you made a mistake. The NYX Assembly's voice entered like a cold knife. What mistake? Rook's smile faded. You assumed you're the first monsters we've ever faced. The transmission cut. On Earth, in underground shelters and cramped command rooms, people stared at their screens, hearts hammering. They had no fleet. No allies. No second chance. Only one ship. And whatever humans had hidden inside it. The Dominion's weapons charged. The Gravith clans moved first, because they always did. Their cannons were brutal, mass drivers that launched superheated slugs at a fraction of light speed. One hit could turn a city into a crater. The first volley fired. Space became a storm. The Aegis reacted instantly. A halo of light formed around it, not a smooth shield like the Dominion expected, but something layered, shifting, like a storm made of geometry. The incoming slugs slammed into the field and bent. Not stopped. Bent. They curved away as if reality itself refused to let them touch the ship. They spiraled off into the void and vanished. The Gravith bridge fell silent. What is that? Someone whispered. The NYX Assembly ran simulations. The numbers refused to stabilize. That shield does not absorb, NYX said quietly. It redefines collision. The Aurelian synod glowed brighter with sudden anger. Their weapons were different, precision beams that tore atoms apart, slicing through defenses with surgical cruelty. Aurelian fired. A beam of pure energy struck the Aegis and held contact. The shield flared. The beam continued. For a second, it looked like the human ship might actually break. Then the Aegis did something the Dominion had never seen. It learned. The shield shifted mid-impact. The geometry rearranged. The frequency changed. The beam, once deadly, began sliding off like rain on glass. Aurelian commanders went still. That's not possible, one said. Adaptive shielding requires centuries of calibration. The NYX Assembly's voice turned sharp. It is not calibrating, NYX said. It is improvising. That word was unfamiliar in Dominion warfare. Improvising was what weak species did when they had no plan. But this was not weakness. This was strategy. On the Aegis bridge, Captain Rook gripped the railing as gravity flickered. The ship rattled like it was being punched by gods. His crew looked half dead already. They were not polished veterans from a proud empire. They were the leftovers of humanity's hidden programs. Test pilots, engineers, astronauts, soldiers, and scientists forced into one crew because time was short. A young woman at the weapons console, Lieutenant Mara Soto, wiped blood from her nose. Shields adapting, she said, voice strained. But we can't take this forever. Rook's one good eye scanned the enemy formation. Don't need forever, he said. Just need one opening. A man at engineering, Dr. Niles Veron, shouted over alarms. Captain, the core is overheating. If we trigger the main lance now, we'll lose half our systems. Rook didn't look away from the enemy fleet. Then we make the shot count. Mara swallowed. Target. Rook pointed. The biggest mouth in the room. The Dominion flagship. The Aegis rotated. Slowly. Deliberately. That movement alone changed something. Dominion fleets were built on fear. Their enemies usually begged, hid, or scattered. But this human ship wasn't running. It was aiming. The Gravith warlord barked orders. Full defense. Crush it now. Hundreds of Dominion weapons fired at once. The Aegis held. Its shield screamed with light. Its hull sparked. Inside, crew members were thrown against consoles. A man screamed as fire burst from a panel. The bridge filled with smoke. Still, the ship held position. Still, it aimed. On Earth, Director Alina Moore watched the incoming data. Her face was pale, jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth. They are pushing it, a commander beside her whispered. Alina didn't answer. Because she knew something the rest of Earth didn't. The Aegis was not humanity's greatest weapon. It was humanity's first message. A signal written in steel and defiance. We are not easy prey. And in that moment, millions of humans across the planet, people who hated each other yesterday, held their breath together. The Aegis fired. A beam of white light erupted from its forward lance, not like Dominion weapons, but like something ripped straight from a star. It struck the Dominion flagship. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ship's armor began to glow. Not from heat, just something deeper. The material seemed to lose its meaning. Layers separated like peeled skin. The beam held. The flagship's forward section simply came apart. A massive chunk of the Dominion's proud command vessel tore away into fragments, drifting in slow, terrible silence. Then the explosion hit. A wave of fire and debris expanded, swallowing nearby cruisers. Dominion comms filled with screams. The Gravith warlord staggered, staring at his broken ship. That was one shot, he whispered. The NYX assembly's voice turned cautious for the first time. They can harm us, NYX said. The Aurelian synod dimmed, like a candle suddenly aware of darkness. And the Virexi choir, silent until now, pulsed one disturbing thought through the fleet network. If one ship can do this, what else do they have? On the Aegis bridge, Captain Rook coughed, blood on his lips. Mara stared at the display, trembling. We hit them. Niles shouted, panicked. Core dropping. We're losing containment. The ship's lights flickered. Gravity stuttered. The main lance went dark. Rook forced himself upright. Status, he rasped. Mara's voice cracked. We can't fire again. Shields are failing. They are regrouping. And across the tactical screen, the Dominion fleet shifted formation, not in rage now, but in calculation. They were adapting too. They were preparing to erase the Aegis with everything they had. On Earth, Director Moore watched the enemy ships align, and her stomach tightened. Because she knew the most terrifying truth of all. The Aegis had just proven humanity could hurt them. And now the Dominion would stop playing. The Dominion fleet reorganized with terrifying speed. What had been arrogance turned into precision. Ships shifted into layered formations, overlapping fire arcs calculated to erase a target from existence. The NYX assembly fed probabilities directly into every weapon system. The Aurelian Synod stabilized its energy cores. The Gravith clans stopped shouting and began hunting. They no longer saw the Aegis as a joke. They saw it as a problem. And problems, in Dominion doctrine, were erased completely. On the bridge of the Aegis, the celebration lasted less than a breath. Warning lights bled red across every surface. Gravity dipped again, throwing crew members hard against restraints. Somewhere below, metal screamed as a section of hull tore loose and vanished into space. Captain Elias Rook forced air into his lungs. Each breath felt like swallowing glass. Report, he said, voice hoarse but steady. Lieutenant Mara Soto didn't look away from her console. Her hands shook as she rerouted systems that were never meant to be rerouted. Shields at 19% and falling. Main lance is offline. Secondary weapons at 40. We took structural damage across 6 decks. Dr. Niles Veron cut in from engineering, his voice distorted by smoke and alarms. The core is unstable. We push it any harder, we risk a cascade failure. That's not a warning, Captain. That's a countdown. Rook closed his eye for half a second. The Aegis had done what it was built to do. It had sent the message. It had cracked the myth of invincibility. But messages didn't win wars. Survival did. Across the void, the Dominion commanders reached the same conclusion. The Gravith warlord bared his stone teeth. Enough. End it. The Aurelian Synod agreed, their light flaring with cold resolve. Erase the vessel. Leave no data. Leave no symbol. The NYX assembly paused. There is value in capture, NYX said. Their technology. No, the Gravith warlord snapped. They bleed. That is enough. The order went out. Total annihilation. On Earth, screens across the world showed the same image. The Aegis, battered and burning, dwarfed by an ocean of enemy fire. People prayed. Others screamed. Many simply watched in silence, hands clenched, hearts breaking. They had dared to hope. Director Alina Moore stood rigid in the underground command center, her fingers pressed into the table so hard they went white. "Give me something," a general whispered. Alina didn't answer. Because for the first time since the invasion began, she didn't know if humanity still had a move left. The Dominion fired. This time, there was no restraint. Beams, slugs, missiles, gravity distortions, everything converged on the Aegis in a storm so violent it lit space itself. The shield flared wildly, geometry collapsing and reforming in broken patterns. Then it shattered. Energy tore into the hull. Deck 7 vanished in a flash of light. Crew members died without sound. The ship spun, bleeding atmosphere and fire. Mara screamed as her console exploded, throwing her back. Rook caught her by the harness before she hit the deck. "We're done," someone sobbed over the comms. "We're done." Rook dragged himself upright, blood dripping onto the deck. "No," he said quietly. The word cut through the chaos. "No," he repeated, louder now. "We are not done." He looked around the bridge at the faces of his crew. Burned. Broken. Terrified. Human. "They think this ends with us," Rook said. "They think killing one ship restores their story." The Aegis shuddered again, alarms screaming. Rook turned toward engineering. "Niles. How long until the core goes?" Niles hesitated. "Minutes. Maybe less." Rook nodded. "Good." Mara stared at him. "Captain, what are you saying?" Rook met her eyes. "I'm saying we stop trying to survive." Silence fell on the bridge, even as the ship screamed around them. "We can't outrun them," Rook continued. "We can't outgun them anymore. But we can still outthink them." He turned to communications. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Wideband." "Sir," the officer said. "They'll just." "Open it." Across the Dominion fleet, sensors lit up as the human ship transmitted again. The Gravith warlord snarled. "They beg now." The display activated. Captain Rook appeared, blooded, half-blind, standing because he refused to fall. "This is Captain Elias Rook of the human vessel Aegis," he said. "You wanted our surrender. You wanted our silence." He took a breath. "You don't get either." NYX studied the feed. "What is he doing?" Rook continued. "You believe power is domination. That the strong rule and the weak vanish. You believe fear is order." Behind him, crew members moved with sudden purpose, redirecting power, overriding safeties. "You're wrong." The Aegis lurched violently as another hit tore through its flank. Rook didn't flinch. "Humans don't win because we're stronger," he said. "We win because we refuse to accept the rules we're given." The Gravith warlord laughed. "You are dying." "Yes," Rook said simply. "But not quietly." In engineering, Niles's eyes widened as readings spiked. "Captain," he shouted. "You're feeding the core into the drive." Rook nodded. "Convert the reactor mass. Turn the drive into a gravity knife." "That's not a weapon." Niles yelled. "That's improvisation," Rook said. The word echoed. The NYX assembly froze. "That configuration is unstable," NYX said sharply. "Probability of catastrophic failure exceeds." The Aegis surged forward. Not accelerating. Folding. Space twisted around it, dragged inward by a collapsing gravity well generated from a reactor that was never meant to do this. The human ship became a wound in reality. Dominion sensors screamed. "What is happening?" an Aurelian commander demanded. The answer came too late. The gravity wave hit the front line of the Dominion fleet. Ships buckled. Hulls crushed inward as space itself turned against them. Formation collapsed as vessels were dragged out of alignment, slammed into each other, torn apart without explosions, just silent, crushing destruction. The Gravith warlord roared as his ship lost control. "This is impossible." NYX's voice trembled. "They are weaponizing failure." On the Aegis, lights went out. Systems died one by one. Crew members were thrown hard as the ship tore itself apart to keep the gravity field alive. Mara clung to her station, crying and laughing at the same time. "We're hurting them," she gasped. "We're actually hurting them." Rook sank to one knee, strength finally failing. "That's all we needed," he whispered. Across the galaxy, something ancient cracked. Not a ship. Not a fleet. A belief. The belief that power was permanent. That dominance was destiny. That the weak stayed weak. On Earth, silence fell as Dominion ships vanished from the sky, some crushed, some retreating, some spinning helplessly away. The invasion was not over. But it was no longer one-sided. Director Alina more exhaled for the first time in hours. "They did it," someone whispered. Alina shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "They showed them how." Back on the Aegis, the gravity field collapsed. The ship went dark. Floating, broken, but still there. And across the Dominion fleet, one thought spread faster than fear ever had. If this is what humans do when they are dying, what will they do when they have time? The silence after the gravity wave was heavier than the battle itself. Broken Dominion ships drifted through the void, some crushed inward like empty shells, others tumbling without power. A few managed to escape, tearing open faster-than-light corridors in blind panic. They fled not because they were ordered to, but because fear had finally reached them. The Aegis did not chase. It could not. The human warship floated dark and scarred, surrounded by debris and the ghosts of what it had just done. Inside the Aegis, there was no victory music. No cheers. Only alarms fading into silence as systems shut down one by one. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across twisted metal and blood-streaked walls. The ship smelled of smoke, burned wiring, and iron. Captain Elias Rook lay against the bridge railing, barely conscious. His chest rose shallowly. Every breath hurt. Mara Soto crawled across the deck toward him, dragging her injured leg. "Captain," she whispered. "Stay with me. Please." Rook's good eye opened halfway. "Did they run?" he asked. Mara nodded, tears slipping down her face. "Some of them. The rest, they're wrecks." Rook let out something between a laugh and a cough. "Told you," he murmured. "Just needed one opening." She grabbed his shoulder. "You almost tore the ship apart." Rook smiled faintly. "Yeah, but it listened." In engineering, Dr. Niles Verron stood ankle-deep in water and coolant, staring at the core readings in disbelief. The reactor was dead. Not damaged. Spent. They had burned it down to the last usable particle. The Aegis was now a drifting monument. But it had done its job. Niles opened a shipwide channel, his voice shaking. "All hands, this is engineering. The core is offline permanently. We are not jumping anywhere." Silence followed. Then a voice came through, quiet, steady. "We knew," someone said. "That was always the plan." On Earth, celebrations tried to start and failed. People hugged strangers. Others cried alone. News anchors stumbled over words like victory and survival without understanding either. Because the Dominion fleet was gone, but not defeated. Director Alina Moore watched the feed from the Aegis as its signal weakened. She knew the numbers. She knew the odds. She also knew the truth that kept her awake at night. The Dominion would not forgive this. They would not forget. And next time, they would come prepared. "Status?" a general asked softly. Alina straightened. "The Aegis is alive." "Barely. They bought us time." "How much?" She hesitated. "Enough to make a choice." Far from Earth, in a region of space older than stars, the Dominion of Crowns gathered again. Not in triumph. In emergency. The surviving commanders transmitted data fragments, sensor logs, recordings of impossible physics and human defiance. The chamber pulsed with unease. The Gravith clans were furious. This is an insult, their warlord snarled. A stain that must be erased. The Aurelian Synod glowed dimmer than before. We underestimated them. The Virexi choir pulsed hunger and curiosity. They are interesting. And the NYX assembly remained silent longer than usual. When it finally spoke, its voice was altered. This was not an anomaly, NYX said. This was a pattern. The others turned. Explain. NYX projected projections, simulations of human behavior, of historical conflicts, of wars humans should have lost, and didn't. They escalate under pressure, NYX continued. They innovate faster when cornered. They weaponize desperation. Most species collapse when faced with extinction. A pause. Humans adapt. The chamber darkened. What do you propose? Asked the Synod. NYX answered carefully. We do not attack immediately. The Gravith warlord exploded. Cowardice. No, NYX said. Calculation. We must understand them before we destroy them. The Virexi choir pulsed approval. They burn bright, it sang. Let us see how bright. The decision was made. Earth would not be invaded again tomorrow. It would be studied. Prepared for. And when the Dominion returned, it would not be with an evaluation fleet. It would come with annihilation. Back aboard the Aegis, emergency power finally stabilized at minimal levels. The bridge lights steadied. Captain Rook stirred as medics worked on him with shaking hands. Mara sat nearby, exhausted, staring at the stars beyond the cracked viewport. We did it, she whispered. Didn't we? Rook didn't answer immediately. He looked out at the void where the Dominion fleet had been. No, he said quietly. We survived. She frowned. Isn't that the same? Rook shook his head slowly. Survival is permission, he said. Victory is expectation. Mara didn't fully understand, but she felt the weight in his voice. What happens now? She asked. Rook closed his eye. Now, he said, they learn we exist. A weak transmission reached Earth. Director Alina Moore leaned forward as Rook's battered face appeared on the screen. Captain, she said. You did it. The world. Rook raised a hand gently. Director, listen carefully. She fell silent. They're not done, Rook said. Not even close. They learned something today. Alina nodded slowly. So did we. Rook swallowed, pain flashing across his face. The Aegis can't fight again, he said. But you can build more. Alina's eyes hardened. We already are. For the first time since the invasion began, Rook smiled without bitterness. Then make them better, he said. Because next time, they won't come curious. The transmission cut. On Earth, beneath oceans, mountains, and cities, hidden doors opened. Projects long frozen were reactivated. Prototypes were pulled from vaults. Ideas once dismissed as too dangerous were reconsidered. Humanity had been seen. And humanity had answered. The stars were no longer silent. They were watching. And far beyond the edge of known space, something ancient stirred, not in anger, but in anticipation. The dominion of crowns had ruled through certainty. Certainty that no species could match them. Certainty that resistance was temporary. Certainty that fear was enough. Earth broke that certainty. In the weeks that followed the battle, the galaxy changed in quiet, dangerous ways. Trade routes once tightly controlled by Dominion patrols began to hesitate. Minor client species delayed tribute shipments. Frontier governors requested clarification orders they had never questioned before. Whispers spread. Not rebellion, yet. Something worse. Hope. Stories traveled faster than fleets. A single human warship. A dying reactor turned into a weapon. An empire forced to retreat by a species that should not have mattered. The Dominion tried to suppress the narrative. It failed. Because fear, once cracked, does not seal again. On Earth, the world did not return to normal. It evolved. Borders softened. Old rivalries cooled, not from peace, but from perspective. Humanity had looked into the sky and seen extinction. Everything else felt smaller by comparison. Director Alina Moore stood inside a facility so deep it distorted satellite readings. Around her, rows of engineers, scientists, and strategists worked without pause. On the central display floated dozens of ship designs. Not copies of the Aegis. Improvements. The core failure was a success, one engineer said. We understand it now. Good, Alina replied. Then make sure the next one survives it. A general stepped closer. We intercepted Dominion signals. They're reorganizing. Slowly. Carefully. Alina nodded. They should be afraid. They're not afraid, the general said. They're studying us. Alina allowed herself a thin smile. So are we. Captain Elias Rook did not see the celebrations. He woke days later in a medical bay carved into solid stone, his body wrapped in supports, his vision blurred. Mara sat beside him, asleep, her arm in a sling. When he stirred, she jolted awake. You're alive, she said, laughing and crying at once. Rook tried to speak and failed. She leaned closer. Easy. You won't be winning any speeches. He breathed slowly, then whispered, Did it work? Mara nodded. They pulled back. For now. Rook closed his eye. For now, he echoed. A doctor approached quietly. Captain, the damage to your nervous system is severe. You won't command a ship again. Rook absorbed that without visible reaction. Okay, he said after a moment. Mara stared at him. That's it. Okay. Rook looked at her. I wasn't fighting for a career, he said. I was buying time. Far beyond Earth, the Dominion gathered its strength. This time, the chamber was not loud. It was tense. NYX assembly projections filled the space, models of human production curves, innovation rates, psychological adaptability. They are accelerating, NYX said. Faster than expected. The Gravith warlord snarled. Then we strike now. And lose more, NYX replied. Or we wait, and face something worse. The Aurelian Synod flickered uneasily. What could be worse than resistance? NYX paused. An idea, it said. Silence followed. The humans did not defeat us with strength, NYX continued. They defeated us with refusal. That concept spreads. The Virexi choir pulsed softly. They sing of defiance now, it murmured. Others are listening. The Dominion understood, then. Killing humanity would not erase what they had shown. That the galaxy's rulers could bleed. Back on Earth, Alina Moore stood alone in a hangar the size of a city. Before her rested a new vessel. Smaller than the Aegis. Faster. Smarter. Not a symbol. A system. A technician approached. We're ready when you are. Alina placed a hand on the cold hull. No, she said. We launch when they come back. The technician hesitated. And if they don't? Alina smiled. Then we go find them. Captain Rook watched the stars from a rehabilitation wing weeks later, his body broken but his mind sharp. Mara joined him, carrying 2 cups of terrible coffee. They named a program after you, she said. Rook groaned. That's worse than dying. She laughed, then grew serious. You changed everything. Rook shook his head slowly. No, he said. Humanity did. He looked at the stars. They thought power was ownership, he continued. They thought fear was permanent. They thought the weak stayed weak. Mara followed his gaze. What do we think? Rook smiled, calm, certain. We think tomorrow is negotiable. Across the galaxy, Ancient empires watched Earth with something they had never felt before. Not hatred. Not contempt. Caution. Because they had seen what humans did when cornered. And for the first time in galactic history, the rulers of the stars understood a terrifying truth. Humanity had not won the war. They had only introduced themselves. And the galaxy would never feel safe again.